In this webinar, we offer a live Q&A about the enrolled agent exam.
Which part should they do and what order should they take them in, Christy?
I get asked this question a lot, and I usually just recommend that you take the exam in order, but you don't have to. I took the exam in order, part one, part two, part three, and that's how most people sign up for it. But sometimes people will take part one and part three because those tend to be easier if you have individual tax experience. And then they'll save part two for last. Because part two, the scope for part two is a little more intense for most people. It's just the amount of information that you have to study for part two tends to be more difficult, especially for beginning preparers. But there are some people where part two is easier for them. For example, if you have someone who has an accounting degree, then part two is going to be easier for them because they probably took classes on corporate tax and partnership tax. And I took accounting classes too in college, and I had to take courses on corporations, partnerships, that sort of thing. Accounting 1A, 1B. So it just depends, but usually I recommend that you take it in order. But for people who have accounting degrees, or maybe they have another license, like maybe they're a CMA already or a CIA already, certified internal auditor or whatever, they might find that taking part two is easier for them first. But generally, you don't have to take them in order though. You can take them in any order that you want.
Okay, great. There's a lot of questions around the rolling time frame and when people have to pass. Is there a time limit from when you start to when you finish? Taking exams?
Yeah, as I'm speaking, okay, as I'm speaking right now, there's a 3-year window where if you pass part one, you have 3 years to pass the other two parts. Usually it's 2 years. The government changed it to 3 years because of the COVID pandemic and everything that was going on with that. So there are people who've taken parts in the past where they're still within that 3-year period. And if they, get a move on, then they can pass the other two parts within that 3-year window and get their EA license. But as of right now, it's a 3-year window. Once you pass one part, you have 3 years to pass the other two parts.
And for the vast majority of candidates, that's more than enough time.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about, you could pass them all in 9 months or 12 months, and the 3 years or 2 years starts after you pass your first exam.
Exactly.
So you really have 3 years or 2 years to pass 2 exams, and that's enough for the vast majority
99%
of
the candidates.
Yeah.
I mean, most people do not take 3 years or even 2 years to pass all 3 parts.
Yeah.
Usually they do it within 9 months to a year. That's the average. But if you need more time, for example, if you have to take another part over, which is not unusual, sometimes people will take part two again or part one again. And many times they'll pass the second time around, they'll get close. You absolutely can do that. There's no detriment if you fail it the first time or whatever, other than the fact that you have to pay for the exam fee again. But you have 3 years to pass all 3 parts.
If you fail, it's not part of your public record.
Exactly.
You're still an EA. It doesn't say Brian finally, after 7 years of trying, became.
Yeah, nobody's gonna know.
You're either an EA or you're not an EA. There's no.
And the funny thing is I actually saw this was last year. I actually saw a post from a candidate who took each part, like he took each part multiple times and he just never gave up. And there's a lot of candidates out there where maybe they fail part one and then they think, oh, I'm never going to be able to make it. But the whole idea is that if you stick with it, you're going to pass. I mean, I've seen people with zero tax experience, zero accounting background, pass the EA exam in 9 months, 6 months, just because they stuck with it. So yeah, absolutely. It's doable.
Great. Thank you. I think there's some confusion because of the way tax years are filed. Like we file our 2023 taxes the year after, right? So when that happens, are people still, if I pass the exam right now, am I eligible to do taxes from multiple years, or am I stuck with just the current knowledge? And how do I get information on all the tax changes that happen for next year? Am I still valid?
Okay, yeah, that's a confusing aspect of the exam. I'll admit that. The exam does not follow, does not exactly follow the tax year, the accounting cycle for individuals. What happens is the calendar year that we're in right now is 2024. I'm talking in 2024, but the tax returns that we're filing are 2023. So tax return filings are always historical. You're reporting the income that you made last year, right? That's what we're doing. So the EA exam is also based on 2023, not 2024. 2024 isn't even over yet. Congress hasn't even decided what tax law is going to be for 2024. So if you take the EA exam now, you're going to be tested on 2023 tax law. And you will continue to be tested on 2023 tax law up until the last day of February 2024. That's when the current exam cycle ends. And on the Hawk website, that's the information that is going to be on the Hawk website until the current exam cycle ends. The current exam cycle ends on the last day of February, and you will be tested on 2023 tax law. And then what ends up happening is when you get to March 1st, the current exam basically gets shut off. Prometric doesn't offer the exam in March and April, and then it turns over to the next tax year. So in 2025, March 1st, 2025, then that's when you're going to have to start learning about a new tax year. So yeah, that's a drawback to stretching out your study time for multiple years, is that, yeah, you're going to have to learn the tax law for the next tax year if you wait more than a year to try to pass all three parts. It's doable. I know people who have done it, but it definitely makes it a little bit harder.
Follow our channel for more information about the EA exam.